this week to be anointed the alumnus in residence at Champlain College. So this morning, as I was contemplating my fate today of speaking to a group of potential students looking for jobs and so on, I did a little homework. So I wrote a little note to myself, which I'm going to share with you, and then I'll get into the rest of the story. So I'm still on a long journey through life. At the moment, you are traveling with me. I have been asked to go back almost to the beginning and then to reimagine the future. On the second day of my new term at Trent, I've been asked to speak for 10 minutes on the topic, what is a liberal arts degree worth, in brackets, now? I've added the now because now is the implied challenge. When I graduated from Trent in 1969 with an honors degree in political science, I went for 4 job interviews and received 4 job offers. Perhaps an uncommon story today. I turned them all down. Clarkson Gordon offered me a job to train as a CA. Canada Packers offered me a job, I guess, to be in the packing industry. I was offered a management trainee job at McLeod Young Weir, a stockbroker. And finally, CPR, I guess I'd be in the train business. I turned them all down because I was given an offer to come back to Trent and work for another year as assistant to the master of Champlain College and in the registrar's office. I loved the place, and I also didn't know what I wanted to do next. It was very convenient. The following year, I went to law school. I still didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. This morning, I met a 4th-year Champlain student who was hoping to work at Trent next year and then probably go to law school. And I wasn't looking in the mirror, and it wasn't Groundhog Day. All the students I have met so far are bright, engaged, and are enjoying the Trent experience. They are thankful for being here and are very aware of the profs that are special and making a difference through lively dedication and involvement with the students. Are the students who are awaiting my thoughts on the value of a liberal arts degree different from the students I have just met? Are they unhappy with the journey they are on? Are they expecting to reach a destination soon? 40 years after I completed my formal education, I bought a farm in Whitby. For the last 2 years, I have been learning about farming, property maintenance, fences, weeds, fungi, field crops, sheep, alpacas, cattle, honeybees, hops, forestry management. We're about to embark on a new career in chickens. Back at Trent, what can I tell my new college mates about the value of a liberal arts education? What can I do with it now? I am thinking of writing a book. I'm looking into nanoscience and wondering what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. I don't feel any pressure to figure it out by the end of the week. I'm not worried, I'm happy. I'm still working on my future. I will let you know if I find an answer for you. I hope you find it first. It is a journey, as we've already heard. And my particular journey, I'm an entrepreneur. I became an entrepreneur after my degree in law. I practiced law for 7 years. And I've just found that somehow it wasn't satisfying. Now, I think the function of the entrepreneur is to paint the long shadows that the future casts upon the present. And those long shadows are the contradictions and lacuna that we see in life. And we see them because of our education and our ability to grasp concepts and to find and see things other people didn't see. And I was reminded of that yesterday when I attended an excellent lecture by Haroon Akrami Lodi, Department of International Development Studies. And his talk was on the contradictions of food sovereignty. And he was talking about the Via Campesino movement, which was about trying to make, well, it's a very broad movement and it's filled with contradictions. And that's the point about, is it not about the movement, but it's about the fact that Professor Akram Lodi was making a career out of those contradictions. He had 9 points of contradiction, which he had turned into a book. He was quite capable of speaking at length and was clearly available to go on tour to talk about these important contradictions and the conclusions that he was drawing from observing these contradictions. And he had coined a new phrase. They're no longer the contradictions of food sovereignty, but it's the contradictions of agrarian sovereignty. He had come up with a new concept. Now what he is going to do with it is probably different from what I was going to do with it, but he'd identified those contradictions. Now in my life, I have been involved in many, many projects. I did get my law degree. I practiced law for 7 years, and it gave me perspective, and it gave me a métier, something which I could bring to the projects that I was involved in, beyond my arts degree, which I still think is the important foundation of my understanding contradictions. So here's a couple of the contradictions that I came across. I was a director of a packaging company, an employee-owned company in Hamilton with 200 employees. We had 3 plants. 2 of them made folding cartons, and 1 of them made set-up boxes, which are made by hand. In the set-up box industry, think Burke's boxes, if you can think back that far. Think Trivial Pursuit boxes, think Kodak camera boxes. We made all those. And they're all made by hand. And they all last. So in 1986, I was just a director, and I got on board because I was their lawyer, and I had good personal skills, and it was employee-owned. It was important to keep all the family together. So here I was. And at a session where we were looking at the future of the set-up box business, I said, you know, the difference between a folding box and a set-up box, there's 2 things. One is all set-up boxes are made of recycled paper. You know, most cardboard is made of recycled paper, but all set-up boxes are, because the boxes are then covered in something else. So why don't we position these boxes as permanent boxes, not as disposable boxes? And why don't we adopt as a motto, and this is before, it's now a wide motto, I probably should have patented it or copyrighted it: reduce, reuse, and recycle. And you do this by making boxes that are gift boxes for all seasons, and you will find those boxes today in the LCBO, among other places. You go to the LCBO and there's permanent boxes or containers. We made the original ones. They've now gone into circular ones and various different things. But we had this concept, and we kept a plant that was dying with 65 employees open through a very difficult period of time by recognizing that there was a new, in 1986, people were starting to think ecology and reduce, reuse, and recycle. Permanent gift box costs $5, but more than you're going to pay for packaging, but it's not disposable. Isn't that a good idea? So that was a contradiction that I was able to identify, and that made an important impact on my life. Probably a more important one. Of course, I never made a paper box in my life. I personally wouldn't know how to fold a piece of cardboard or apply a cover to, and the people who did are marvelous craftsmen. But that's not the point. The point is I was on the team. And the other major contradiction, and the one that I guess probably my life hinged on, was in the 1980s. I came across a group of software consultants who were working for large companies, the insurance companies. Canada had very large industrial business companies compared to the rest of the world. Our banks and insurance companies were very large. And they had large IBM systems, and they were buying brand new Xerox high-speed laser printers, which were 2 different technologies. And I said, well, isn't that strange? Why don't they make these 2 machines work together? And, well, they could. Okay, let's do it. So we formed a company. I put $25,000 of my hard-earned money in a personal guarantee at the bank, and we set about to, and did in fact, make it possible to drive a high-speed laser printer called the Xerox 9700 from an IBM mainframe, and produce all the bills and statements and credit card statements and things that you now see today without operator intervention. Because what used to happen was the input would come off the computer, you take the disk, you go over and you plug it into a tape drive that drove the printer, reprogrammed it, and produced it in a whole new language, and out the other end came your statements, and laser printed. Because up until that time, IBM only had, this is 1980 basically, only had fan-fold green bar paper with holes on the end, and laser printing was brand new. So that dealt with the mechanical aspect of having the computer talk to the printer, but it still had the problem of the underlying language. And over the next 20 years, I continued with my company. We built it to 120 people, pursuing the contradiction of incompatible languages in computers. To this day, I do not write a bit of computer code. I couldn't read a bit of computer code. I hardly use a computer. I'm a bit of a Luddite, but I managed and understood and challenged people and engaged people in the process of creating a very important technology which today basically underpins most of the large financial institutions in the world. We at the end of the day made it possible for all of the roughly important 11 different languages of computers and printers to speak with each other and be archived, printed, viewed, transmitted, rejumbled, rejigged, and recently converted from the printed word to the spoken word, all automatically for the deaf. And this was the contradiction that we identified as, first of all, a mechanical contradiction of devices not working together, and then the contradiction of why do we have all these languages when the output is actually aimed for the same marketplace. And in that process, we accomplished a very important technology breakthrough that is, as I said, underpinning the world of high commerce in the large insurance company and bank situation in the world. There's two other things that you need to know about being an entrepreneur. One is the incredible requirement for stubbornness. Another word for that is patience. And it's important to have the family support behind you in order to do that, because what I'm talking about is by the time in my late 40s, I was finally able to say I'm a financial success apart from being a happy man. But in the middle was a lot of other stuff that wasn't necessarily happy, but it was very engaged. And I look back and all I remember is the good times and the positive stuff. And the starting point was a liberal arts degree where I learned to express myself and to understand what other people are saying. And I thank you, Trent, and that's what I have to say about a liberal arts education. Cool.